This is something I've been wanting for a long time, and DDR finally has it. And that is an actual skill point system. Something that'll give you at least an idea of where you are in progressing with the game. It may not replace something like skill attack. It may be one third-party reference that you may not have to check anymore. Like DDR is finally catching up with some of the other games in the series in terms of features, like with this skill point system. Sound Voltex has this with their Volforce. I think it's called Volforce. 2DX, in a sense, has it with their DJ point system, and Gitadora has their own skill point system, and now DDR World is going to have their own skill point system called Flare Skill. It's something that will indicate and quantify your skill, more so your progress in the game. Konami dropped their third round of information about DDR World. Let's take a look through this and break down what we're going to expect from the game. So what does Google Translate have to tell us about flare skills? It is a separate indicator from the play score that quantifies the player's ability. Flare skill is obtained by playing and clearing the target songs. Flare skill is calculated from the difficulty of the score of the target song that was cleared and the type of dance gauge used. So it sounds like there are different levels of a flare gauge that you can select, and depending on which one you use, you will get more skill points out of playing that song. Use the flare gauge to improve your skills. You can get flare skills by clearing the song with the normal gauge, but by clearing the song using a flare gauge, you can get more flare skills. By clearing higher level songs with a high rank flare gauge, you can get higher flare skills. So the one thing I would like to know is what exactly the difference is between a normal life gauge and a flare gauge. Is it life recovery? Is it how fast it drains? Maybe both. How to check flare skills. The flare skill of each music sheet will be displayed in the play score section of the play results column when you press the number pad 4. Additionally, the flare skill of each music sheet, I think music sheet means chart, played will be displayed in the total result. So the result screen, I guess, will show you which flare skill you use to play that song. We can kind of zoom in a little bit here. This number here, the flare skill. So these are the points that you get that go towards your skill points, your overall skill points. And by playing each chart, each difficulty of a song, you get more skill points that way. Increase your total flare skills. The total flare skill is calculated by adding up the top 30 flare skills from each category for a total of 90 flare skills out of all the scores you've played. So having a top X amount of song cutoff is kind of similar to how skill attack works. If you don't know what skill attack is, it's a third-party site where you can submit your scores and it'll calculate your skill point, your rank, and is kind of a way to quantify how good you are at the game. But it'll take your top, I think it's 50 songs. I'm not sure. Somebody in the comments can correct me. It's what, like 20 or 50 of your top scores, your top songs. I just know right now when I'm in ITL mode, I'm thinking about how that works and how ITL works. It takes your top 75 songs. Only those are going to count towards your rank points. This part is kind of a little segue from what I can tell. They're changing how the music in the game is going to be divided and going to be categorized by. Anything from DDR first mix to X3 versus second mix is going to be categorized as classic. DDR 2013 to Ace is going to be categorized as white, and anything from DDR A20 to World is going to be categorized as gold. It's kind of interesting because World is not gold at all. Play various songs and music sheets to improve your total flair skills. A reminder, when I say music sheets, I think they mean charts. Another way that they translate it is they say score. So this is what the screen is gonna look like. So it shows a flair skill meter here, how many points you've gained in total during this set, and a breakdown of how many flair skill points you've gained from playing each individual song. And yeah, that's really cool to see, and I think it'll be really interesting to see how that works, how it plays out. I think it'll be a big motivator for getting people to play more, because I think psychologically a lot of players love to see big numbers and want to get their numbers as high, as big as possible. And here it looks like the login screen. So when you log into the game, you're going to be able to see your player name, your dancer name, and what rank you are in singles and in doubles. So singles and doubles play rank is going to be separate. I think that makes sense. I'm not sure what these stars indicate. I think that's something you have to collect in game. Let me just lens this real quick. Advanced play benefits for song packs is valid. So I don't think that really tells me anything about the stars. But yeah, and this area, it says Australia. Wow, Australia mentioned. The scores played on Dance Dance Revolution World and later will be eligible for the calculation. Flair skills are calculated separately for single and double. Switching the display to flair skills is only possible when you are in a song folder where the numeric keypad operation instructions are displayed. I'm not sure when that wouldn't be the case. If you clear the stage using the dance gauge Life 4 and Risky, the flair skill you can acquire will be the same as normal. Okay, so there's no difference between Life 4, Risky, and normal in getting flair skill. If you play with the assist option set, you will not gain any flair skills. So you can't play anything on cut or freeze off or jumps off. Total flair skill is calculated separately for single, double. Didn't they just mention that? Doesn't that seem a little redundant here? To save your total flair skills, you need an amusement pass. Yeah. The flair gauge can only be used in premium play and galaxy play. I think a lot of us are familiar with that. The screen and functions are currently under development and may differ from the actual specifications. So yeah, these are not final screenshots or mock-ups. Take these screens with the tiniest little sodium tablet. All right, when your total flair skills improve, rank names have changed. So it seems like we get names for ranks depending on how many points we've gained. When your total flair skill reaches a certain value, a rank up animation will appear and your rank name will change. Ooh, fancy. See the classification of each rank and total flair skill here. Aim for a higher rank. So we start with no rank here. No rank is anywhere from 0 to 1999 points. Once you get to 2000, you get Mercury rank. So this theme looks like a planetary solar system themed. Notice there's no Pluto. Pluto relinquish. Mercury rank is from 2,000 points to 5,999. Venus from 6,000 to 9,999. Earth 10,000 to 15,999. Mars 16K to 23,999. Jupiter 24K to 33,999. Saturn from 34K to 44,999. Uranus 45K to 59,999. Neptune 60K to 74,999, and the Sun 75K to 89,999. World rank, the highest rank, 90,000. So if you're only getting like 463 points from Dancer in the Flair Expert, you're gonna have a long way to go to get to world rank. Although I don't know how the points are going to scale. So I would love to see how many skill points you can get from playing something like Egoism or Velaqus. Oh, here we go. New songs. Every time you reach a certain rank, new songs and charts will be unlocked. That's interesting. So we have skill gated unlock. unlocks. How do you feel about that? How do you feel that you have to get good to unlock new songs? Although I suppose that's not too different from unlocking extra savior songs. You have to unlock expert and challenged songs. The songs that were selected in the Dance Dance Revolution 25th anniversary song creator audition are eligible. So remember the list of artists that we saw last time. So we're finally seeing more music being teased or made by some of those other artists that weren't mentioned before in this round. So let's take a look and see what new songs we have here. Let's switch it back to Japanese so we can see how this is supposed to look. All right, so we have one song in kanji by Kola. This is Polar Impact. Hypernoa by SK Music. Wonder Coaster by Mugi Pong. Gravity Collapse by X End. Roche Limit by Phyllis Rader, and Odyssey by KONAMI. And KONAMI is a DDR player. Very same KONAMI that was part of BPL Season 2 for DDR and is part of the Silk Hat team. And he made this big announcement earlier that his song Odyssey made it into DDR World as part of the 25th anniversary event. It's very awesome. Congratulations, KONAMI. Also on the 25th anniversary special website, comments from the artists who chose the songs are available. Check them out. Yeah, feel free to go through the website and take a look at what the artists have commented for their songs. We can even take a look at what KONAMI has said here. I'm glad I composed the music. I'm glad I played DDR. I'm glad to be alive. Thank you for selecting me. I'll never forget the shock I felt when I first saw it in the announcement after the conclusion of the BPL Season 2 DDR Finals. I hope you listen to it a lot and play it a lot. And these are what the jackets look like for each of the new songs. Wow, very, very cool. And there's a couple of notes here. The songs and sheet music are unlocked separately for single and double, of course. New options have been added and adjustments have been made to help you acquire flare skill. First of all, there is a new flare gauge called Floating Flare. So I read this a little bit earlier and I'm having a little bit of trouble understanding what exactly or how exactly floating flare works. So if there's anybody in the comments that can maybe help explain how this all works, please feel free, help me out here. Floating flare that can be set from the option dance gauge. When you set this gauge, it will start at flare EX, and when it's empty, it will change in stages until it becomes flare 1. The rank of the flare gauge at the end of the game will be the final flare rank you obtain. So this is this like a status that you have at the end of your set? So this looks like something that you choose when you're selecting your speed mods here. This is where you can choose your flare gauge, floating flare. Yeah, if someone out there can help me understand this better, please let me know in the comments. Next, to make it easier to challenge the flare gauge, we adjusted the amount of gauge depletion for each judgment below flare gauge 4. It's now easier to clear, so please try using the flare gauge to challenge various songs and charts. So I guess these flare ranks, these flare gauges, they're just more difficult life bars to various degrees. So they have some flare gauge and score threshold recommendations. From what I'm getting here is that they recommend if you are able to clear a song with like a 930K, then you should safely be able to play a song on flare gauge 4. If you're someone who's scoring 800K on a song, you might want to use flare gauge 1. Well, these old thresholds are very, very harsh. Yeah, this is definitely way easier, way more lenient. The flare ranks obtained in Dance Dance Revolution A3, including those obtained by clearing the flare gauge that have been adjusted this time, will be carried over into Dance Dance Revolution World. Floating flare is only available in Galaxy Play. Okay, so maybe I have a little better understanding of how floating flare works now. So I guess when you set floating flare, your flare gauge is going to be starting at EX. And if your flare EX life bar depletes, it gets knocked down 1 flare gauge. So it would get knocked down to 4. If that gets knocked down, it goes to 3, then 2, then 1. I guess that would make sense why floating flare is only available for Galaxy Play. All right, so that was the latest update from Konami about DDR World. Does this make you more excited for the game? Do you have any more comments, criticism about the new update? How do you think the skill point system is going to compare to Skill Attack or any of the other BEMANI games? Are you excited for any of the new songs here? And yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next update.